I can add, this is Laura, on top of what Rose said, which is I think definitely important in the HR roles, is a lot of it is resourcefulness. I don't think any one of us know the details of policies and laws as they're ever changing. I mean, you can take COVID for an example of just how much that has been a fluid and dynamic part of probably all of our positions. So a key aspect of my job is being resourceful, having a good network, having good people that I can bounce ideas and questions and be able to find the answers to, because they rely on me as a company to ensure that we are being compliant both legally and safety wise and professionally for our employees.
Yeah, it definitely is kind of a challenging situation. Being resourcefulness, I think, is probably across all of our jobs. Being resourceful is something that is a skill that we look for. When I started my job at the organization, I was in a very different role. So I'll just kind of break it into two answers. One being what I was hired at the agency to do, which was to build a digital team at the marketing agency. And so a lot of the skills that I needed when I started the job were around management skills, around teamwork skills, around just the actual tactical skills for my job. So being a developer, a programmer, having run a team of programmers for close to 5 years prior to being hired over to the agency. And then as I transitioned into larger and larger roles at the agency and took on the creative team as well, a lot of those skills became more soft skills around personal skills, empathy, a number of things that sort of float partway into HR to some degree. But when you're managing a team and you're leading them, you do a lot of that sort of personal relationship work. And then eventually I bought the agency. And so I don't know if there was a litmus test of skills I had to have for that. I don't know if anybody's prepared to deal with that, but dealing with bankers and financing and building a team, I think kind of translates. So now my skill set is far different than it was in the past. So.
Awesome, thanks guys. The next one is, what are the top workplace skills that you look for in new hires?
I think, everyone would agree with me that reliability is huge, because we can't get things done without our people here. But also, being able to present yourself well, regardless of the role, and being ambitious in learning and doing the job and really doing it well.
I would agree with Rose. Those are extremely important for us too. Reliability, having some motivation, some drive to do your job. But I think a very important skill set that we maybe underestimate sometimes is just the communication, whether it be from written to verbal to cross-functional communication around. It's extremely important to have somebody who is capable of ensuring that they're talking to their coworkers, that they're talking to leadership, that they're writing down notes, that they're conveying issues or challenges to the right people. Communication is so critical in our company, and oftentimes I think is very much underestimated just how much of that happens and how difficult sometimes being a good communicator can be. So having that communication skills and continuing to improve on them throughout your career is important for us.
Yeah, I think communication is a huge one, especially if we're talking about two different groups. One would be entry-level positions, and the other would be someone who may have 2 to 5 to 10 years of experience. So there's very different skills we're looking for as sort of a checkbox. For someone coming in a highly skilled position, you're looking for the skills requisite for that job, and they're going to include being able to display half a decade of proficiency in it. But at an entry level position, that communication is huge and critical. We're a small business, so we don't have a lot of layers that people have to go through, but it's amazing how many times 5 people will be in the same room speaking English and they're really talking a different language to each other. And it takes a lot of work to be collaborative and to be respectful and communicate well when people are really passionate about the work that they do. And so we look for that in entry level jobs. We look for people that have strong communication skills and reliability in any way we can sort of suss out on there. And then there's a whole bunch of, at least from an entry level position, we're looking more for soft skills because they're not going to have the technical skills. They just, you haven't actually done the job for 5 years. And so we're looking for the potential for you to execute well in that job. And we find that by looking for a lot of soft skills that I think we'll talk about in a little bit. So.
Does your company offer on-site or off-site training for new hires or current employees as well?
So yeah, here at GE, of course, we have a whole plethora of training that is done throughout the first 3 months of new hires that start. But then for our own employees, we always have some online education that's provided through our corporate, as well as tuition reimbursement that can cover any additional schooling. There's courses that we do throughout the year on things like Greenbelt training to make sure that we're really investing in the employees that we have and can kind of build upon our own pool.
At DeWise, we have what we call our DeWise University. So that encompasses basically all of our training opportunities. Company is definitely very much invested in our team members getting internal and external training. So from an internal standpoint, I have 4 full-time trainers for that range in different skills and abilities out on the floor. So they will each have a specific sector, like a welding, a press brake, whatever the case might be. And then, excuse me, they not only will help entry level when they come in, but also the upskilling factor. So we have multiple different levels for the different areas within my company for all the skilled trades. And then we have leadership training. We have a monthly, what we call lead training, specifically geared towards our first line and middle management. We have tuition reimbursement as well. So definitely believe in trying to help educate outside these 4 walls. So we like to utilize some various different local vendors for outside training and communication and any of the soft skills that we'll probably be talking about, as well as leadership, and then just your 2 to 4 year college education as well. So definitely a lot of opportunity within our company for various different trainings.
This is Kate with Spectrum Health. We have a lot of on-site and off-site trainings. One thing that I do want to mention is, for our positions that do require some experience or licensure that are just a little bit more technical, there is always training for everyone just to make sure that you know your expectations and what we need you to do within your position, especially because healthcare is a very highly regulated industry. But we also have a lot of grow our own programs specifically tailored towards those entry-level positions that may or may not require a high school diploma. Just for an example, we have our Grow Our Own CNA program in Grand Rapids. So we hire you as a unit aide, and then we help you get the education that you need, and we also pay for it for you to become a CNA with Spectrum Health. So that's just one of the Grow Your Own programs that we have available too.
Yeah, on our end, training is different for almost everybody. So we fluctuate between 20 and 40 employees, and we have about 8 distinct disciplines within the agency. So there isn't, hundreds of people at each role. But we do a ton of internal training. So we have an entire video series that we keep up to date, which I'm sure many of the employees are sick of hearing my voice in, but our own tools and our own internal training gets handled that way. We have regular meetings as a group that are just sort of pop-in meetings for additional training where people can come ask questions about processes and things that they need some clarification on, especially since we move through new tool sets pretty regularly as an agency. There's a constant education for those things for some of our staff. And then we don't see a lot of people at our organization continue on with continuing education, because in the marketing field, a lot of people would rather get certifications or go to conferences or do things outside of going after a master's degree or something. And so we do a lot of support for that, where people have a yearly stipend that they can put towards going to conferences, which are all virtual now, and get some time off. And the team is allowed to take whatever time during the day off that they need to keep their training up to date as well. So.
Okay, the next one, which skills stand out most on a resume? What skills do you look for? Which skills kind of pop out when you're first looking at a resume?
I think that probably one of the biggest things we look for are the things that support all of the skills we've been talking about. So, showing and giving examples on how you worked with the team or worked with others, showing examples of the things you've gone after to show your motivation and ambition. And that can look different for everybody depending on their level of, experience. If it's entry level, just out of high school, that may be reflecting more on high school and the things that they did or the things that they worked on. Whereas if it's just entry level, but you have some work experience, reflecting on that work experience and explaining situations that you were in, just to be able to reinforce the skills that you have even from the get-go on paper.
So within Spectrum Health, we receive over 135,000 applications a year. So it's a very large amount of applications that our recruitment team sorts through. So I would say some of the important aspects of a resume that stick out the most to myself, because I'm part of that team that goes through all those applications, is having a very clear and concise resume. Super organized, where we can see your education. So right away we can see the qualifications that you have that meet what the job is requiring. And then once we get to the actual interview phase, I think one of the most important things that we look for is, regardless if you're going to be working within patient care, like actually being clinical and providing direct patient-facing care or not, we want to see that you have compassion for other people and that you're kind and that you actually care about others, because we can train you to do pretty much any job for the most part, but we can't treat you to be nice to other people. So I would say that is one of the biggest things that I specifically look for in their interview is, how are they aligning to our values? Why are they truly interested in the job? So just something that I think some people should consider.
I'll say at DeWise, it kind of depends on what the position is. If it is a specific role that is looking for either a degree, a certificate, or specific skill set, so that's what I'll be looking for on a resume. And that's where, kind of to what she was talking about, Spectrum, being clear on how your skills align with what I am looking for is pretty important. When it comes to our trades and the various different opportunities I have in our shop, it kind of really depends. It's always nice to be able to find somebody with the skills and ability, but we as a company know that's few and far between, which is why we have all the training we do. So a lot of what I'm looking for is what is the background that you've had. Have you had any longevity in some of the positions you've had? What are some of those skills that I can see? Because kind of to what she was discussing at Spectrum, we also feel we can train you to learn a skilled trade. But if you don't have some of that motivation and the drive and the desire to learn and to grow in the company, it's not always helpful what skills you have. Those are where you kind of get into some of that soft skill conversation again. So a lot of it is when we go into the interview process and find out more about who you are, But in terms of when we're looking at that resume, it's always nice to clearly be able to see the connection between what job we do have open and what skills you have available.
Yeah, I might get into a little bit of trouble with this answer, but we don't typically look at resumes for employees who reach out to us. Especially at our senior level and above, resumes are not necessarily something that we spend a lot of time perusing. In fact, in our job application form, we don't have a place to upload resumes. We have a place where you can put your LinkedIn profile for us to go look at. So we're looking for, different things from senior versus entry level. For entry level, top skill we're looking for in a resume is probably spell check off the bat. So the team is looking for a lot of attention to detail. They're looking at those communication skills. But we're also not expecting you to have anything beyond technical proficiency with software. You won't have any work experience to showcase as skills there. At a higher level, we're looking to see what does their LinkedIn profile look like? How often do they engage with similar communities? How passionate are they about marketing? Where have they worked and for how long? We look for a pattern of employment for more senior employees. We're looking for long-term employees. So our average tenure of employment at the agency is about 5 years. So when we hire someone, we're probably going to be family for the next half a decade or longer. And so we're looking for people that are looking to make that commitment to us as well, not just people who want a job for today. So we look for those kinds of things, less skills and more demonstration of ability through portfolio.
So for the next one, you guys have kind of already touched on it a little bit, but if you could go through both the technical skills that are most important for your industry and which soft skills are the most important.
I think for our industry, the technical side of it, of course, manufacturing experience helps because there's exposure that you get from working in any type of manufacturing facility, but it really is also about something as basic as math. In our industry, being in aviation, any measurement that is required has to be precise because the littlest bit off can have huge ramifications down the road. So, being able to use some of the measurement tools and just understand those from a basic math skill set is important, so that we can build upon those to be able to train people. In aviation, there's not a lot of other companies in the area that do it in West Michigan, so we're prepared to be able to train you, but it's going to be the basics of math. And then from soft skill standpoint, like was said, the communication aspect, not being able to or not being afraid to ask questions and ask for further explanation if you don't understand, because like the measurements, it's better to ask 4 or 5 times than to assume instead, because it can have some dramatic ramifications down the road.
I would second pretty much everything that she said. That applies to Spectrum Health too. It can definitely depend. There are so many positions throughout Spectrum that technical skills are really dependent on what you're applying for, and how much experience that position really applies. And then like I kind of said before, soft skills, no matter if you're patient facing or not, we want to see that you care about others and that you're aligning with our values. And that you can work with other people as part of a team.
I'll say for DeWise, a lot of it's very similar to what's already been said, but we do look for mechanical aptitude, and I recognize that might seem a bit ambiguous, but there are testing and stuff that we can do as a company to see if somebody possesses some of the spatial ability, the ability to kind of understand the mechanics of, and the mechanical reasoning, I guess, piece of things here. So we do have a test that we use to try to help in understanding some of the technical skills. If by some chance it is somebody who maybe doesn't have a very long background and have a lot of technical experience, but has a big drive to want to learn. And I think that's what I think you're all hearing from all of us thus far, is that the soft skills in a lot of ways outweigh the technical skills. You can have the best resume, but if you are not a good team member, if you're not a good communicator, if you're not driven and motivated to do the job, probably a high likelihood that no matter who the employer is, you're not going to have a successful working experience at any of our employment places. So I think it's critical that everybody understands just how important these soft skills are to the workplace, and they're important no matter what level, entry level to somebody who's been in a workplace for 20 years. These soft skills never go away. They're an important part of everyday functions that we do as team members within our companies.
Yeah, on our end, the technical skills, I would say from entry level and up, it's important to understand that. So we work in marketing. 100% of the people that work here are in front of a computer all day long, right? We're office workers. We're using creative software across the board. So there are some technical skills around people's proficiency with computers, which are usually not a problem for anyone interested in a job like this. Soft skill wise, we look for a lot of things that maybe, or we prioritize a lot of soft skills that maybe other organizations wouldn't. Like, we prioritize creativity pretty heavily because we're in marketing, right? So creativity, problem solving, just the general curiosity. We look for sort of we look for people who are curious about everything, not just what they do. They want to understand how the people that do the jobs that connect to their jobs work and what they need to get their jobs done. They want to know more about our clients' actual manufacturing facilities. They want to know about our clients' financial regulations, whether they're an account manager or they're creative. We look for that. I think the biggest soft skill that I look for by the time the interview comes to me is I'm looking for some displayable amount of passion for marketing, because this job is pretty brutal. If you enjoy being rejected 8 times out of 10, then marketing might be the field for you. We hear no a lot, and resiliency and the ability to care very deeply about the act of making things is very important for us. And so you can usually tell those people because they talk about their work in a very specific way. They talk about the teams they've worked on, the organizations they've worked for, and the clients they've worked for, and you can just kind of feel it. I think, it was already mentioned earlier that you can't teach people to be kind. I also don't think you can teach people to be passionate about things. I think people are either born passionate or they have an event in life that gives them passion, and you can't force it. So we look for people that either already have it or are looking to find it in this field as a soft skill. And empathy. Sorry, I'll just drop that one at the end. Understanding that everything is complicated, everything is difficult, and everyone else is already having a bad day goes a long way to treating each other nicely and kindly.
Okay. In level of importance, how important is the ability to understand, use, and adapt to new technology, concepts, systems, and operations in your business? I'm assuming for all of you that it is very important to do those things. So if you guys can talk about the use and ability to adapt to those new technologies in your work.
So I'm kind of laughing because my department's going through this right now. We are preparing to bring on an entire new system that will, help out within payroll, benefits, supply chain, finance, my department, which is recruitment, and it goes live on January 1. So we're all in the testing phase. And it's even changing jobs because it's completely changing the way that we work and the way that we're going to service the rest of the organization. So it is incredibly important to be adaptable. and to seek understanding if you don't understand. So if you don't understand why, a process is being switched or why there's a new technology being implemented, then ask what the benefits are, and, trying to jump on board with that, because whether you like it or not, if this is the world that we live in, things are definitely going to change. Just coming from a healthcare perspective, the way people live their lives, the needs that they might have to, take care of their overall well-being definitely changes. And being an employee, you just have to find some sort of way to be resilient, to know the benefits and see what you can do to help. It definitely will make your life easier too, just having more of an open mind and being positive, and seeing what you can do to, welcome, that new operation for the business.
I guess I can jump in on technology. It's huge for us. Not only do we have to stay really aware of all the technological changes from marketing, but we quite often sit in a seat of consulting and implementing those new systems for our clients. So whether it's a CRM or marketing automation or something new, we're doing a lot of digital change management for our clients on a regular basis. And so we have to be experts in everything that they're looking for. And our team and our staff have to be really excited to learn all those new things. Technology is the largest driver of innovation within marketing. Like anytime we get the ability to do something new or connect with people in a more meaningful and personalized way, our clients want it immediately. And so our team has to know that stuff, understand that stuff, be able to explain how to implement those things, and also be able to explain to our clients how they might be able to roadmap up into something using lots of pilot programs and things. So for us, technology is huge. We talk about it all the time. We've yanked out our project management system this year and went to a new one, and there's always a lot of change management internally there. I would think on an average day, our team is probably in 10 to 15 different types of software, on a person by person basis, whether it's project management software, development software, marketing automation software. They don't get to just learn one system, because I couldn't even tell you how many marketing automation tools there are now. There's probably 10,000 of them that enterprise clients could use. And so every client uses a different stack, and we have to learn that stack and understand that stack on a pretty regular basis. So not only can they just learn how to do something in one area, so Salesforce is a pretty common piece of software we use, but the pieces of Salesforce that our clients use, there's a like for like piece across the board times 10. And we have to know all 10 of them, not just the one that our client has. So.
I can talk at DeWise. It's extremely important to being open to change. As you may have heard of Industry 4.0. Things are constantly being adapted and automated, and the change is definitely real in the manufacturing world. And what it does is it doesn't require necessarily less people, contrary to popular belief about automation just getting rid of people. That's really not the case. What it does is it requires everybody to look at it differently. We no longer need just simple what I call button pushers. You have people who can look at the maintenance and the technology of that machine and be able to keep it operational. Automation is only as good as the person who's operating it and programming it. And so therefore, the people that we are looking for to operate our machines need to be willing and able and interested to learn them, because technology is evolving very quickly in the manufacturing world. So for us, that level of importance and that drive of somebody who's interested in working here is definitely connected to their ability to work with technology and be willing to be open to learning new technology while they're here.
Okay, in regards to workplace skills, how do you foster the ability to effectively collaborate and work as a member of a diverse team to achieve a common goal?
I'll speak on that. I suppose, I think that really is looking at the people that are in the group with you, what needs to be done, and not letting, things bother you with the end goal in mind. For instance, I tell people a lot of times, you don't have to be best friends with everybody that you work with. It's great if you are, that makes things fun, but you don't have to. You just have to be respectful of everybody that is around you and be able to work with them so that really the end goal can be achieved.
I'd say, coming from a human resources perspective, everything that we do affects somebody else. So if we're doing a new process or updating one or whatever the case may be, we will definitely tap on those other departments to talk with them, just because what our result is going to funnel right into them for that next step. And one of the biggest things too is we do ask for people's opinions quite often. And one thing that we try to have everyone keep in mind is, maybe if you don't agree with something or you don't understand someone else's point of view, challenging that idea, not the person themselves. And that kind of goes back what she was just saying about respect too. So, having the curiosity to, ask clarifying questions and the courage to speak up if you think that there's a better idea to do something. So I think one of the biggest things that someone ever taught me was challenge the idea, not the person, and respect that everyone else may have a different opinion and build on that to achieve whatever common goal you're working towards.
I think this question ties very closely to how you communicate. I think your ability to effectively collaborate and work with a team of people is all going to be based on your ability to communicate in a manner that is respectable, as they talked about, is clear and concise, is not causing people to put up walls and become defensive in the conversation. Because I would agree, even at DeWise, we're always looking at being the best we can be, and that requires people to all give input, but doing it in a professional and respectable manner that can build off each other and not break each other down because somebody thinks something is stupid. So it's a matter of knowing how to communicate and drive to the best idea without putting people on defensiveness and making people not want to work with you because they feel like fill in the blank, that whatever the case might be. So I think that this question goes very nicely with the ability to be able to effectively communicate so you can effectively collaborate.
Yeah, I think communication is huge. On our end, I think, there's a couple of lenses to this. One is that the majority of the friction that we have as an organization happens when we're coming together trying to solve a problem for our clients. So it's not even necessarily our problem. We're not trying to fix a process or a thing internally. We're trying to solve a challenge or a problem in the way we communicate or market something for one of our clients. And since we're a creative group, a lot of us get very passionate about the things we're doing. And so the earlier comment about, bringing critique to not to the person, I think is huge, but it also requires everyone who's in a group like this to understand that that's where it's coming from, to not take things personally, to be able to both give out critique and receive critique without it being a reflection of their value as a human or their worth. And that does require some practice. It's an uncomfortable thing to do on a regular basis. We call them crits, creative critiques, but we do them on a regular basis just so we stay comfortable with that process. We do it before things can get fully finished so that there isn't too much emotional investment in a product that's being presented. The creative team has a lot of pithy sort of ways of discussing how they, kill off their favorites and do things like that. A lot of times people in our space get overly invested in the thing they've made, whether it solves the problem or not. And so it requires others to sort of remind them that it's not an adequate solution. But I do think, even backing up a little bit, if you're working with a team that's trying to achieve a goal and they're a diverse team, it really requires that goal to be effectively communicated in the first place. I don't think you can expect your team or employees to work together effectively on anything if they don't understand why they're doing it, they don't align with the purpose behind the goal. And so I think it requires leadership to communicate that goal really effectively and to continue communicating it and reinforcing it before you can even get a team to build around solving the problem. So.
We had one question earlier that talked about skills needed to own your own business. And I know Josh is really the only one here that owns the business. So I wanted to kind of change that question. What kind of skills did you need to get into your position? Did you feel like you had those before you were put into a leadership position? Did you have to gain those? I know Josh said that no one's really ready to own their own business. Were there skills that you knew you had that you could translate to being an owner of a business or a leader of the department, as some of the others here are?
Yeah, I mean, I think since my job history is sort of like accidentally getting more management responsibility without actually being promoted, I think you learn a little bit through that. Now, that's not a very common occurrence in a lot of industries, have very or a lot of workplaces have very tiered, like, you know, you go from this, you go from a junior to a regular to a senior, you get promoted. There's a very clear career path. In marketing, there's less of a clear career path, and you sort of accidentally inherit more people to help lead or manage, either because of downturns or it's a small agency or any number of things. And I think you just sort of build those skills over time, and you might be able to recognize them when you look back, but you don't realize you're really building them at the time. I think communication is huge. Trustworthiness, I think, is the biggest skill for building leadership and getting a team to kind of coalesce if somebody isn't just put in a position. If it's going to be organic, I think people can sometimes gravitate towards the people that they feel are the most trustworthy and effective at their job. From a business ownership perspective, I don't think I had the skills needed. I don't have a business degree. My degree is in art and design. I'm an illustrator by trade who taught himself to program after college, and then was hired for a series of jobs I was probably unqualified for, and then just trained on the job, and took every opportunity I could. So I would say that to other people too. I think, you know, take opportunities as they come along, because every opportunity is the ability to sort of move along in your career. And I also feel like, don't turn down leadership or management positions because you feel like you're not qualified for it. I think imposter syndrome is a really difficult thing for people to, unless they're delusional. I think everybody in a leadership position has some degree of imposter syndrome. They don't feel like they deserve it. They feel like there's probably somebody more qualified. I definitely felt that way when I bought the agency. I think one thing that sort of contributes against that is when your employees actively remind you that of the trust they put in you and support your decisions and things like that. But I think it's important to make yourself vulnerable, and to seek feedback and ask for help as a leader. I don't think anybody, it's rare to find a Steve Jobs who just sort of like came into the universe and bossed people around and did it his way and ran over top of people that got in the way. I don't think that's an excellent description of a leader. I think it's better to just build teams, be honest, build trust, ask for help, be vulnerable. People respond to it the same way they do to their family members when you treat them like family. So.
Okay, I think for our last question, we're gonna go with talking about introverts and how comfortable or safe they would feel in these workplace environments where you're talking about how soft skills and communication are really the big ticket items. And how safe they would feel and like what advice you would give introverts on working on those communication skills when they have social anxiety.
I would say that it really kind of depends on the position that you have the most interest in. Sometimes, it might be better for you to start in a role that doesn't have so many interactions with others, if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. And then utilizing different resources that your employer might have available to you to work on those communication skills. For example, Spectrum Health has their own Spectrum Health University team where we offer business professionalism classes, networking, how to meet others, being in more of those vulnerable situations and how you can really thrive and, build your skill sets from those. One thing that I will say too is our teams are really focused on learning about you as a person. Like, how do you like to be recognized is a big one. Some people don't like big shout outs across the whole board. Sometimes it's just like a simple little thank you message that's what people like when they're going to be recognized about something. So I would say though too, have those honest conversations with your leader if you feel like there's some things that you could work on and what they could try to do to help you. But then also looking at those roles that maybe aren't in front of people, talking with people so much, and then working your way there as a stepping stone.
And I think that's great as well. And the only thing I think I would add to that really is just knowing yourself and where your comfort level is, and finding a way to kind of navigate that depending on your role. For instance, here at GE, we do a lot of, they're almost brainstorming or problem solving sessions with a variety of levels of employees, anywhere from our operators to leaders and engineers. And in some ways, an operator who might be an introvert may not be comfortable bringing up an idea or a suggestion. So, going the route of speaking maybe more one-on-one with someone who's leading the group to be able to communicate that may be where someone's comfort level is, and being able to know that and to utilize that can really help contribute without going outside of the comfort level until you're really, really ready to be there.
I would say at our organization, it's probably very similar at almost any other marketing organization. There's really two different types of roles. One is heavily client facing. They're going to be an account manager, a project manager, or senior level employees whose the expectation is you will regularly be presenting creative concepts to groups of people. You will be talking with them on a regular basis. That's probably going to skew a little bit closer to the extrovert realm of comfort. But then there's a whole chunk of job roles at our organization that seem to be very comfortable for introverts. Our developers spend very little time talking to people outside of the organization. They might be asked to jump on a call to explain something complicated here and there, but it's usually to another developer on the client end of things. Our creatives as well run the gamut, but a lot of them tend to be fairly introverted. So there's definitely opportunity at our organization for introverts, very empathetic to that. We try to, sometimes they call protect our creatives from being bothered by clients a lot. But the other thing we do is a lot of our work and communication, especially now that we've all gone home to work and will be, who knows, maybe through 2021, working remotely at this point, a lot of it is very asynchronous. So we use a lot of tools that allow people to communicate at their own time, at their own pace, back and forth through project management software. And whether it is to the detriment or not, there are times when people at our organization might be working on something all day long and never talk to anyone else, especially now that they're working from home. And so if that sounds great to you, maybe think about becoming a developer or a creative, because a lot of that seems to sit in that area. But just know that there is probably a level within either of those job career paths where you would be expected to talk with clients, to present your creative, to sort of talk through your work to a larger group. And the further you go along those career paths, the more often that's going to happen. And in fact, a lot of cases, when you get up to a director level position, you'll no longer be doing the thing that you were super passionate about when you hired. So you won't be designing anything anymore. You'll be art directing other designers, sort of talking with them, critiquing their work, and presenting their work to clients. From a developer perspective, you will most likely move into a team lead position. So you wouldn't actually be programming or building anything anymore. You'd be helping the people underneath you get the things done they need, and acting sort of as a client liaison in either of those roles. So there can be sort of a glass ceiling around where introverts might end up wanting to work. But you can also be a freelance developer or creative and make an amazing living all the way across the country. So there's a lot of flexibility in our space.
Great. Well, I think we're at the end of our time. So thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see all of you next week. All of the panelists will be joining us again for Employer Expectations panel next week. So thank you all. You guys can log out, and we will make this recording available on Tavuti. Thank you.